Welcome back to Berm Peak. I'm Seth, and today we're going to be doing something a little different, but kind of the same because we're continuing our Mountain Biking 101 series. Last time I answered the questions that many of you were too afraid to ask, so we mainly went over terminology, things that are said in these videos over and over again. And for many of you who don't mountain bike, this gave you a base level of understanding sufficient to enjoy these videos. Today we're going to take it a step further and go into the things that I think are next on the list of importance, and that is very basic mountain biking techniques and how to not piss people off. Let's start with that. Let's start with bike park etiquette. Now at a bike park, the cardinal rule, the one thing that you need to know is that you can't block the trail. Don't stand on the trail. Even if your bike breaks, even if you fall, get off the trail. If you have to stop next to the trail, get as far to the side as you can, because people are not expecting to see somebody on the trail at a bike park. They're expecting to ride very fast. So if they come around a corner and you're standing there, at best, they're gonna get very angry at you. At worst, you're gonna cause a crash.
Oh, sorry, man. My bad, dude. That was a dick move of me.
Now, we've all heard it said that if somebody gets injured, it's best not to move them. I would say the exception to that would be on an active path at a bike park. If your friend is laying there injured around a blind turn, things are gonna go from bad to worse if you let them get run over by another mountain bike. So if you're out of the way of active trail corridors, you are way ahead of the game at a bike park. Bike parks are designed for mountain bikers, so there's not a whole lot you can do to piss people off. As long as you're using basic courtesies that you would anywhere else, you're gonna be a good citizen of a bike park. But a lot of times you're gonna be going to a bike park with your friends. Now, especially if you're with more experienced people, they're probably gonna be prepared. They're gonna arrive there with their bike in working order, with all their gear on, and they're gonna wanna get out of the car and start riding. Don't be that guy that has to make a repair to their bike, or has to put on all their gear after they arrive 10 minutes late. This is gonna make your friends hate you, and it's gonna make them not want to come to a bike park with you. Another fine point at bike parks comes down to skidding. Skidding is the one trick that everybody knows how to do. Somebody gets a bicycle, they lock up the rear brake, they skid, it's fun, but it's also the thing that destroys trails most. A properly built trail won't even really get damaged by water, but skidding is going to dig your tire knobs into the tread and tear it up. Then that loose dirt is gonna get muddy, and those holes are gonna get deeper and deeper, and somebody's gonna have to come fix it. So when you skid, you kind of ruin things for everyone. At bike parks, you will find areas where people congregate and wait to drop into trails. And sometimes it might seem like they're in line, like they're waiting their turn to drop in. They're not. You can drop in whenever you want. As long as there's space to do so, you can just scoot past the crowd and drop in. Those people congregating are just taking a break. One thing I would say about dropping in is, for your own sake, if you're a beginner, wait for other more experienced riders to drop in before you. If you drop in before them, chances are they're gonna catch up to you, and then you're gonna have to experience the anxiety of them creeping up on your tail. If you give them space, let them go in before you, then you're not gonna have to deal with any of that, and you can have the trail all to yourself. Multi-use trail systems come with their own set of additional considerations because there are other trail users on them. Multi-use trails like this one allow hikers and horseback riders in both directions. Unfortunately for us mountain bikers, we have to yield to everyone. You have to yield to hikers, you have to yield to horseback riders, and you have to yield to other mountain bikers who are going uphill. But the main thing is, you don't want to create problems for other mountain bikers. Some trails in this area have actually been closed down to mountain bikers because they just became too much of a problem. Even if you don't care about being rude to people, it reflects badly on all of us, and so when you are out on the trails on a mountain bike, you have to represent us all. So the type of riding that you do on multi-use trails is going to be a little bit different than what you do at a bike park. A bike park is for partying, and a multi-use trail is for exploring. Whether you're on multi-use trails or a bike park, you should mind the trail conditions. And by that, I mean, is the trail really wet? Is it really dusty? What is the condition of the actual surface? Now, you can find this out through local Facebook groups, talk to people who ride there, or go into a bike shop, buy an energy bar, and tap into their knowledge. The reason this is important is because if the conditions are bad, you might actually be destroying the trail by riding it. Another place you can check on trail conditions is Trailforks. Trailforks is a mapping app that has pretty much every mountain bike trail in it, and it makes it really easy to find your way around. Sometimes you can look there, and on the actual trail you want to ride, it'll give you an update on the conditions. It'll say updated 2 days ago, 4 days ago, a week ago. That can give you an idea of what's going on. Also, common sense. If it rained like 4 inches yesterday, chances are today is not a good time to go for a ride. Now, occasionally you'll find a day like today where trail conditions are otherwise perfect, but as you make your way into the trails, you find 1 or 2 trouble spots. The question is, what do? The answer? Ride right through the mud puddle, right in the center. If you do that, you're destroying something that was already destroyed. Now, if you try to go around it, you're gonna widen the trail by encroaching on habitat that wasn't trail before. You're gonna widen the trail and you're gonna make the repair efforts much more difficult. So ride through the puddle, not around it. So now that you know how to not piss people off and just be a good citizen of the trails, we can talk about techniques, actually riding your bike. Now, we're not gonna talk about hitting jumps or doing tricks. We're gonna talk about the very most basic things about mountain biking, starting with saddle height. Now, you probably already know that to pedal a bike, you should have the seat up so that your leg is more or less straight. You don't want to pedal with your seat down because it's really bad for your knees and it's really inefficient. But what you might not know is that if you're going downhill for a long period of time, you should probably have your seat down. Also, you should be standing up. This is called an attack position. In an attack position, you're gonna have your body weight centered over the bike. You're gonna have your arms bent and you're gonna be ready to absorb impacts. So you may have seen more advanced riders riding on their back wheel with their front wheel in the air. You may think this is a wheelie, but oftentimes it's actually a manual. A manual is when you bring your weight back and go up on your rear wheel without pedaling. You're just balancing there and you're not using the pedals to keep yourself up. Now, whether we're talking about wheelies or manuals, this is not that important as a basic mountain bike technique. However, it is important for you to be able to unweight your front wheel and get it up in the air a little bit. Now, sometimes where this might be important, or if you're going into a whole bunch of chunk and you don't want your front wheel to plow head first into it. For instance, if I were to go off of one of these wooden drops, I should pull back before I go off the drop so that my nose is up in the air and my bike lands flat. Were I not to unweight my front wheel, the front of my bike would dip down as soon as it went off the end, and I would not have a good time. That's no fun. So the key to unweighting your front wheel is to, first of all, move your weight backwards as far as possible. You want to make the front of your bike very light so it's easy to pull up. So what you want to do is, before you go back, push down and snap your whole body back. Now, this can feel a little bit unsettling at first. You're afraid you're gonna go off the back of the bike or flip over. So try it on a flat surface first and get comfortable with it so when you encounter some kind of a drop on the trail, you know what to do. So one of the most important techniques you need to learn to keep your bike in control is proper braking. Now, you have a brake lever on the right side of your bike and the left, and depending on what part of the world you're in, these are gonna control either the front or rear brakes. Pretty much always, you're gonna wanna use both of them at the same time. Now, if your brakes are set up properly, you can do what's called feathering your brakes. That is, only applying them a little bit. If you lock them up, you're gonna lock up your front wheel and go over the handlebars, or you're gonna skid your back wheel. When your wheels are not spinning, you can't keep your bike under control. And so you want to feather your brakes so that they continue to spin, but also slow down the bike. Now, if you were to inspect the brake pads of an experienced mountain biker, you would notice that the front brake is worn down more than the rear. That's because when you're slowing down, your weight is being shifted towards the front of the bike and more of the weight is on the front wheel. So your front wheel should actually be taking up more of the braking than your back wheel. Beginners often just use their back wheel because they're afraid to squeeze the front too hard and go over the handlebars. If you learn how to feather your brakes and learn how to control them properly, that won't be a problem. If you've been riding your new bike around, you probably realize by now that it has gears. In one direction, the bike goes faster, and in the other direction, it has more torque and is easier to pedal. But you also might realize that sometimes your gears make terrible clanging noises. A lot of the time, this is caused by shifting under load.
Ooh, that hurt.
Shifting under load happens when you are climbing a hill or putting down power on the pedals, and then you realize you have to be in a lower gear, and so you start shifting while you're putting tons of stress on the drivetrain. At best, you're gonna hear loud, terrible clanging noises, and at worst, you're actually going to damage your drivetrain. So the solution is don't shift under a load. Try to plan ahead. Always look in front of you, and if you see you're gonna have to be downshifting soon, do it while you're soft pedaling instead of when you get to the hill and need to get into a low gear in an emergency. You know you're soft pedaling when you're really not putting that much pressure on the pedals at all. In a perfect world, that's always gonna be how you're gonna shift. Now, speaking of looking ahead, that's a really important technique. A lot of new mountain bikers look down at their tire. And when you look down at your tire, you just see what's right in front of you and it passes really quickly. When you look out ahead, you're essentially slowing everything down. You can see more of the trail. Try it. If you look about, let's say 10 yards ahead of you, you're gonna be able to ride everything much better. Just imagine if you were driving your car and looking at just the line right in front of you. Somebody would come out into the middle of the road and you would hit into them. So don't do the same thing on your bike. So that concludes the second episode of Mountain Biking 101. Just like the first episode, we went over basic concepts so that you could take the next step from just learning terminology. Now you know your way around your bike just a little bit, and you can go out to a trail system or bike park without pissing people off. As always, I didn't even come close to going over everything, and so there will be future episodes of this series and a place down in the comments for you to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. It's probably more stupid to not ask. Now that you know how to be a good citizen of the trails, look like one. Get yourself a Berm Peak jersey. They're comfortable, they wick moisture well, they're lightweight, and you're gonna wanna wear them every day. We have these new retro colors with the sunset pattern, and they're available on cognitivemtb.com in a link below. Thanks for riding with me today, and I'll see you next time.